all things Halloween. This is hauntformer, and in case you haven't noticed, it is October, which is the spookiest month of the year, and often the most probable where you may just see a scary movie. There are horror movies in theaters right now, on TV, practically on every channel, and it begs the question, what ones should I watch? That's a good question. And usually that answer is met with a lot of popular picks. Movies like The Shining, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and while there's nothing wrong with those classics, they're classics for a reason, I do think that there are some slept-on horror films that deserve more praise and attention. So consider this new series a love letter to the forgotten films. Because today, we're going to be breaking down 5 terrifying horror films in the cult of the cults.
Hocus pocus, we take her to bed. Magic is free. We're dead.
Josephine Levine presents Magic, a terrifying love story, starring Anthony Hopkins, Anne Margaret, and Burgess Meredith. Rated R.
You ever seen Jurassic Park? Probably. Nah, it's not the movie. You remember the old man with the cane with the little mosquito in it? That's Richard Attenborough. And did you know that before he got into acting, he directed a couple films? Specifically, this first venue on our list that may just be a great option for your October viewing season. Magic, which was released in 1978, the same year as the original Halloween. The movie, which was directed by Attenborough and based off of a book by William Goldman, follows a young magician ventriloquist by the name of Corky and his dummy, Fats. Corky is, of course, played by the ever-so-talented Anthony Hopkins, long before his Silence of the Lamb days, and follows the magician ventriloquist on an adventure to his hometown, where he runs into a long-lost love. But little does she know that Corky and Fats have a bit of a personality problem. Magic is kind of a, I don't know if I would call it a full-out horror movie. It's a pseudo-horror movie, almost like half a thriller, half a horror movie. The film kind of mixes new elements, things you'd see in a movie like Split. It mixes them with something you'd see out of a Twilight Zone episode or perhaps a Goosebumps book. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Slappy fans. It's a really fascinating watch, one that I'm shocked isn't more highly praised. Of course, Hopkins is the standout, but really the film in and of itself is a very claustrophobic, creeping sensation, and I highly recommend it for your spooky season.
The stuff. You have been warned.
You know, I'm actually kind of surprised I haven't talked about this one yet. Larry Cohen, who's one of the kings of B-movies with films under his belt such as Q the Winged Serpent or It's Alive, made one of my favorite films smack dab in the middle of the 80s in 1985 with The Stuff. I'm really surprised I've never talked about this movie. I have watched it for years now. My family knows I love it. I quote it a lot. It is such a bizarre movie. The basic premise is it's killer ice cream or yogurt or something, because sometimes it's refrigerated, sometimes it's not. I'm not totally sure. It's a new food craze, which kind of taps at that consumerism poke that was really popular in the 80s. It also is, like, healthy to eat, like, you don't gain weight when you eat it, and so people are eating it up, but the catch is, it eats you from the inside out. It's an awesome movie. It's really cheesy, it's really corny. If you like movies like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, The Stuff is right up your alley. Killer Ice Cream, need I say more?
Did you do that, or did she?
She did it.
That's right. She did it.
The monkey ruled the man. It climbed inside his head. And now, as fate would have it, one of them is dead. Monkey Shines, an experiment in fear.
George A. Romero is perhaps most fondly remembered for his creation, essentially, of the zombie movie, with Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, all of the Dead movies, really. And if you don't know him from that, and you probably know him from Creepshow or the like, but there were a couple movies that were kind of he dabbled in the 80s, and this is one of those times where I think his attention to detail works. Monkey Shines is based off the British horror novel of the same name, and follows a young man who gets in a terrible accident, basically leaving him paralyzed from the neck down. And he is forced to spend his days in a wheelchair, assisted by a little, like, capuchin monkey by the name of Ella. And while this man and Ella the monkey get to know each other for this type of new therapy with animals, they begin to share a link in their mind, and Ella can read his thoughts and do his will just by a mere thought. And as he gets angry and becomes more animalistic throughout the film, Ella begins to take matters into her own hands. Monkey Shines has this kind of creeping vibe that slowly takes over the film. It starts good, accident happens, monkey Ella is introduced, and Ella at first is a very cute animal, but as you see when you watch the film, the attachment, the bond between Ella and the man really starts to corrupt both of them, really, and it ends in bloodshed and terror. It's quite a creeping movie. A lot of it takes place in the same house, and you really feel the entrapment that the main character has to the chair. Ella, on the other hand, is able to travel and move around quite quickly, so you get an interesting dynamic between the two. There are some subplots and things going on with cheating and a science lab and all this stuff, but at the core, it's about this man and the monkey and the terror that ensues. It's a really interesting movie, again, one that's quite slept on, hence why it's in this video, but you should check it out. A George Romero classic, for sure.
Leftovers to be?
Michael, there's nothing to be frightened of.
Now, there's a new name for terror. Parents.
Bedtime.
Bob Balaban is a guy that has a lot of credits to his name, including Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Seinfeld, and like a dozen others on IMDb. It's really crazy. But at the very late point of the 80s, right before the 90s, 1989, Bob Balaban directed this really bizarre little horror movie that is rarely talked about. I have almost never seen anyone talk about this movie. Parents. And it's one of my favorites on this list for a lot of reasons, one of which is the style. It is a movie that takes place in the 1950s, and the movie is littered with references to the 50s, from the style of the houses to the music selections and the fast, choppy editing. It feels very slick and fun, but at the same time, you know something really bad is about to happen. It, of course, stars Randy Quaid. If you don't know who that is, perhaps you might know him better as Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation or just the Vacation movies in general. And he and his wife character in the film raise their young boy to be a young man, starting at a new school in a new town. Why did they move exactly? Well, there are some rumors, mostly that they're cannibals. And the young boy sets out to determine whether or not his parents are actually so, yeah, cannibals. Cannibals. The movie is a bizarre trip. It is crazy. There's so much I could talk about, but I don't want to spoil it for you. I don't want to tell you if they're cannibals or not. I don't want to tell you what kind of music gets played, or that a sausage link perhaps tries to choke a young boy. Yes, that's all in the movie. Go out and watch Parents. I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon Prime. It is well worth the watch.
God help those who get caught in the tourist trap.
This is not happening!
Rated PG.
Perhaps the scariest installment on this list, and rounding it out for this episode, is a movie from the folks at Full Moon Features, a company that has brought us the strangest of horror movies, including Killer Bong, Ginger Dead Man, and the Puppet Master series, which is perhaps their claim to fame. But little did a lot of people know that in the late 70s, they would make a movie that was slept on, but one that deserves your attention: Tourist Trap. With the same set designers as the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Tourist Trap follows a group of tourists as they go to a trap out in the middle of nowhere, trying to find their way back to normalcy. But what they discover includes mannequins, telekinesis, and bizarre hillbillies. This movie is downright nightmare fuel. It is terrifying stuff, especially if you have automatophobia, the fear of like mannequins and dummies and stuff like that, and animatronics. Ugh. I'm not going to get into details. You can see some of the images if you look this movie up. It is really weird. I said telekinesis and mannequins in the same sentence earlier. But on top of all of that, the movie has this grimy, gross feel, just like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And you feel that. You feel that dread. And because of that, it is definitely a terrifying horror movie. Well, there you go. 5 recommendations that you probably have never been recommended before. I'll be back with more later this month, so stay tuned. And remember, for all things Halloween, this is Hauntformer.